Welcome to Independence Nation on the Light of Life Network. Unfortunately, tonight I am the bearer of some scary information, some information I've been tracking concerning China in the news. And hopefully I'll be able to convey the message well tonight, and you'll be able to understand where I'm coming from. So let's go ahead and get to our screen share as we track this information, as I said, tracking a trend concerning China. It starts out with an article that I read. This was during the time of the shutdown, the U.S. shutdown in October. I saw this article: China's state media blasts U.S. shutdown, calls for a de-Americanized world. So let's go ahead and read concerning this de-Americanized world that they're planning for. It reads as such, with days to go before the United States debt default deadline, Beijing aired its frustrations with the shutdown Sunday, saying it was time to consider a de-Americanized world order, and that's the key. They're wanting to move forward with their New World System. But as this article states, without the United States, without America being in the top position, as I see it here, that China is backed by world powers to replace the United States as a world leader. Let's go ahead and read forward. With $1.28 trillion in U.S. Treasuries, China is easily the biggest foreign holder of American debt. China has also funneled billions of dollars into private American investments to the tune of an estimated $54 billion in 2012 alone. This is in quotes, as U.S. politicians of both political parties are still shuffling back and forth between the White House and Capitol Hill without striking a viable deal to bring normality to the body politic they brag about. As I said, this was on the shutdown. It is perhaps a good time for the befuddled world to start considering building a de-Americanized world. Now, that was according to a stinging op-ed article by state news agency Xinhua. Hopefully I'm pronouncing that properly. So let's scroll down. It also reads, in quotes, days when the destinies of others are in the hands of a hypocritical nation have to be terminated, and a new world order, and that's the key. This, once again, they're talking about their new world order that they want. The new world order should be put in place according to which all nations, big or small, poor or rich, can have their key interests respected and protected on an equal footing.
The term, certainly very strong language here out of that commentary on Xinhua news agency on the weekend. Now, obviously there are two facets to this. Obviously, first is, China's exposure to U.S. debt. The second is, of course, they're taking this, I guess, opportunity to further their interests here. And, the message here is that they think the U.S. is being reckless because they're allowing their domestic issues to impact the rest of the world, obviously putting in jeopardy a lot of these dollar investments of a lot of other countries, not only China. Obviously, in their case, they have the most at stake here, $3.5 trillion invested in dollar-denominated assets. So at least as far as that's concerned, they say the world needs a new reserve currency. And they're saying that now, obviously, you're seeing a lot of debate at this point, that it's a good time for the world to sort of rethink and reconsider what the future should look like, and as you mentioned, how it can build a de-Americanized world. Now, obviously, currency is one part. It's not the only part. Another part is, we all know China wants to have at least more say in global affairs. So, for example, they're saying the U.S. has to respect more the sovereignty of other countries, not to meddle into the domestic issues of other countries. Plus, of course, in their case, they also want a bigger say in bodies like the IMF, the World Bank, for example.
Yeah, so maybe being opportunistic. Let's promote the use of the renminbi. But how can you do that when this currency isn't even fully convertible yet? It's not like I can just trade the renminbi into any currency I want.
Right. I mean, certainly they do have a lot of domestic issues that they have to put their house in order before.
Yeah, just a few domestic issues.
Well, one of it is to make it fully convertible, certainly a very big one. Liberalizing interest rates also comes hand in hand with making your currency fully convertible. I mean, they're doing a lot right now. They're obviously right now in the middle of, say, increasing the number of uses as far as trade is concerned.
Swap deals with the use of the yuan. That was just announced last week with the ECB, which is a big deal.
Yeah, it's a big deal. Obviously increases the supply of renminbi out there. The next step is, we talked about this about 3 years ago, where you would want to, say, increase the options for investment in yuan-denominated assets. And obviously after that, then you move on to becoming a reserve currency.
Right, right. Well, that's still a few years away, I'm sure. Oh. Okay, David, thank you for that. Yeah, nodding, saying, of course.
Is my idea, tracking this trend and being led by the Holy Spirit, that China is now being backed by world powers to replace the United States. Further articles on November 15th, of articles as we read them. China State Security Committee into a more democratic country. Let's read it. China's plan to create a new security committee demonstrates President Xi Jinping's success in cementing his authority as Communist Party leader, analysts said Wednesday. Chinese academics for decades have advocated a body to oversee coordination among police, intelligence, military, and other security organs, which have sometimes appeared out of step with each other or with the party's civilian leadership despite their emphasis on discipline and unity. The 2011 test flight of the Chinese fighter jet hours before the U.S. defense chief met with China's leader raised questions over whether security and civilian branches were in sync, as did the slow response to massive riots in the West in 2009. Former Chinese President Jiang Zemin tried in the 1990s to establish such a coordinating agency, experts say, but his effort failed due to resistance from the military and factions within the leadership that did not want to cede power. But Xi has succeeded where Jiang failed, said Liu Xianying, a political scientist at the Chinese Academy of Social Sciences, and hopefully I'm saying these names correctly. If not, bear with me. The fact is that Jiang had not yet been able to establish his power and status to the extent that was needed to set up the committee at the time, Liu said. One cannot set up the committee and coordinate the resources unless he has established and consolidated his power already. And this is the key, because the current president, Xi, has established his power. He has the right backers with him, and now he's moving forward and making drastic changes, as you will see as we read further. But one cannot set up the committee and coordinate the resources unless he has already established and consolidated his power. Now, this is important. We'll read one further. The new National Security Committee was one of the few concrete measures announced by party leaders Tuesday after a 4-day meeting that served as a platform for Xi to lay out his policy vision and for his team to unveil an economic blueprint. As I said, they just were involved in meetings about the progress of China and how it would go in the coming years. And this is a result of those meetings, and this is where they're planning to lead China from this forward. Let me go back and read it. The new National Security Committee was one of the few concrete measures announced by party leaders Tuesday after a 4-day meeting that served as a platform for Xi to lay out his policy vision for his team to unveil an economic blueprint, which leaders said would give market forces a bigger role in the economy while maintaining state industries at its core. So what you're finding out here is the replacement is taking place. They prepared for it. They've had meetings about it. Now they're acting out what their plan is. Few details of the panel were announced, including whether it be a body or an entity of the Communist Party. A China expert at the Brookings Institution in Washington said he thinks the committee will be a government body that will make Xi's leadership somewhat more like a presidency than the current collective leadership style. So now they're taking this communist element and they're trying to make it look more like a democratic presidency. As a result, you see things in the news as this one policy. So what you'll see in the future from here, and remember they put it here at Light of Life, that they're going to make a lot of changes with China. They're going to sing their praise or how they are moved from being heaven, but they're trying to make him look more like the American presidency. So let's get to the third article. We're still tracking this trend. This is how I'm putting these articles together so you see that it's true and there is a progression that has taken place. China's central bank suggests faster tempo for freeing the yuan. Now let's read here. With a shift in tone and language, China's central bank governor has dangled the prospect of speeding up currency reform and giving markets more room to set the yuan's exchange rate as he underlines broader plans for sweeping economic change. The central bank under Zhao Zichun has consistently flagged its intention to liberalize financial markets and allow the yuan to trade more freely, even before the Communist Party's top brass unveiled late last week the boldest set of economic and social reforms in nearly 3 decades. This is the key. Once again, they unveiled late last week the boldest set of economic and social reforms in nearly 3 decades. But since the 60-point reform plan was released, Zhao has suggested urgency in pushing for change, although he has not provided any specific timetable. He promised on Saturday to pull out all stops to deepen financial sector reforms. Darius Kowalczyk, an economist at Credit Agricole in Hong Kong, said the governor's comments could mean that the People's Bank of China, also known as the PBOC, will widen the trading band of the yuan in the near term. Now, that probably means, and this is in quotes, that probably means there is more upside for the renminbi, and that's just another name for the yuan. The yuan, also known as the renminbi, has risen this year to 6.09 per dollar, and that's from 6.23 at the end of 2012 and hit a record high of close to 6.08 in October. And that was around the time, as we read the first article, that they have decided to move forward with a de-Americanized New World Order. However, there was little evidence of any newfound freedom of the yuan in trading on Wednesday. On the one hand, the central bank set its daily fixing for the starting point of the yuan trade for a record high, but dealers said open market gains were checked by state-run banks selling the currency, probably on behalf of the central bank. Once again, there are bankers involved. In addition, the daily fixing has been consistently weaker than the spot market, indicating the central bank is trying to rein in the currency's strength. The PBOC is still intervening heavily to prevent the CNY, which is the yuan, from appreciating more, said RBS economist Louis Kudz and Tiffany Koo in a client note referring to dollar trade inflows and speculation that are putting the yuan under pressure to rise. Freeing up the currency would imply a very large appreciation versus the US dollar, something for which we believe there would not be appetite for right now. So what we have here is that China has decided to slowly roll out the yuan and to appreciate the yuan, which would depreciate the US dollar. As a result, what we're going to find is that products in the United States are going to be a whole lot more expensive. So our last article, China announces that it is going to stop stockpiling US dollars. Once again, as an effort for them to move forward on their new world system without the United States. China just dropped an absolute bombshell, but it was almost entirely ignored by the mainstream media in the United States. The Central Bank of China has decided that it is no longer in China's favor to accumulate foreign exchange reserves. During the third quarter of 2013, China's foreign exchange reserves were valued at approximately $3.66 trillion. And as you may already know, China has the most part of the U.S. debt. And of course, the biggest chunk of that was made up of U.S. dollars. For years, China has been accumulating dollars and working hard to keep the value of the dollar up and the value of the yuan down. One of the goals has been to make Chinese products less expensive in the international marketplace. But now China has announced that the time has come for it to stop stockpiling U.S. dollars. And if that does indeed turn out to be the case, then many U.S. analysts are suggesting that China could also soon stop buying any more U.S. debt. Needless to say, all of this would be very bad for the United States.
It looks like the days of the almighty dollar could be coming to an end. And as the currency weakens, countries are looking for alternatives. And it looks like the euro also has a bleak future. Economists are pointing to a weakening U.S. and EU economy, while emerging economies are growing. China, for example, is expected to trump the U.S. GDP in just a few years. And just last week at the BRICS summit in India, the 5 most rapidly growing countries agreed to ditch the dollar and trade using their own currencies. So has the dollar seen its day? And is the euro going down with it? Well, Michael Snyder, founder of the economiccollapseblog.com, is here to discuss more. Welcome, Michael. So what are the signs that the dollar is weakening? What signs are we seeing today?
Well, a lot of nations around the world are getting tired of using the U.S. dollar as essentially the de facto currency of the world for the past 4 decades. Essentially, U.S. dollar has been used in most international trade transactions, and in particular in the trade for oil. Back in 1973, the United States made an agreement with Saudi Arabia to do all trade in U.S. dollars, and that's greatly benefited the United States. But recently we've seen, particularly some of these emerging countries that you've talked about, they've stood up and say, hey, why should the U.S. dollar continue to have such preeminence? For example, China. The IMF is projecting that China will have the largest economy in the world by the year 2016. So China is sitting there and they're asking, well, why shouldn't our currency have more of a place on the global stage? And so we've started to see a lot of these agreements come into place. For example, China and Russia have been trading with each other in their own currencies for over a year. And then just a few months ago, we saw China and Japan, the second and third largest economies on the globe, reach an agreement where they would start promoting the use of their own currencies and trade with one another. So we're starting to see a huge move away from the U.S. dollar.
And I also want to talk about the euro. The dollar is widely known as the world reserve currency, but it's not just the dollar necessarily that's slipping. Is the euro in danger too?
Oh, absolutely. But the euro, it's for different reasons. We see the problems in Greece, Portugal, Italy, Spain. Europe is really starting to crumble economically. And so that's the reason we're seeing the value of the euro go down. For a long time, people thought that the euro would be the primary rival of the dollar. but it's the financial problems, which are far from over. People need to realize that Europe is headed for some really, really hard times, and the euro is going to continue to decline in value. And we're going to see some of these emerging currencies become more widely used and more widely demanded.
Now, Michael, would you say that the euro is in more danger than the dollar?
Well, I think that you're looking at a couple different problems. We had this huge financial crisis back in 2008, which was centered on Wall Street, but now I believe that the next great financial crisis is going to be centered in Europe. In fact, we saw unemployment in Europe, in the Eurozone, go up to 10.8%. It's increased for 10 months in a row. They're heading into another tremendous recession. And there's a lack of confidence in the euro. We're going to see the value decline. Now, as far as the US dollar, what we're seeing is the world wanting not to use it so much as a global trade currency. As I mentioned earlier, and then we're seeing other things. For example, China and Saudi Arabia recently came to this huge agreement where they would build this massive oil refinery in Saudi Arabia. And most people don't realize that China actually buys more oil from Saudi Arabia today than the United States does. So China is becoming the most important customer to Saudi Arabia. So how long will Saudi Arabia stick to trading in only US dollars if China is a more important customer for them?
Now, when we are talking about the dollar as a world reserve currency coming to an end, what then would replace it?
Well, that's a good question. China is saying, hey, what about our currency? Or we've seen other proposals by the IMF or the United Nations talking about a basket of currencies, or ultimately a new global currency, which would be a truly global currency. So there's all kinds of proposals out there.
This would cause the US dollar to depreciate and thus raising the price of products here at home. So once again, we've tracked the trend. There is a situation going on with China where I see it as China being backed by world powers to replace the United States as the world leader. Remember, you heard it here at Light of Life and Independence Nation. So this is Keith Pitts reporting for Independence Nation. Let's get ready for anything. I'll see you next time.